February 5th, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart using the NinjaTrader 8 platform. As I saw the charts today, there was one piece of economic data that came out at around 7 a.m. Pacific Standard, which is about right here before this big sell-off happened. It was the ISM Services PMI. I wasn't able to get a trade in. I tried to take this trade, but my order wasn't filled. I think my entry was too conservative, or in this case, too optimistic, hoping that it would come back and fill me. And then there was a couple other setups that I saw that I didn't take and hesitated for one reason or another. And they turned out to be pretty good. I imagine with more chart time, I'll get more experience and trust the setups a little bit more. So I'm going to go through the trades right now. Overall, the market structure looked like it was kind of like it without this big, I guess, breakout, it looked like it was kind of staying in a range. So it stayed in a range, it sold off, did a quick little bounce, and then recovered the entire move again. So it's kind of like a big V, I guess a big V-shaped structure. So overall, I didn't find too many trades that I really liked, but the ones I did find, I kind of hesitated, and then the one that I tried to take, unfortunately, I didn't get filled. So it was a no trade day for me. This is what the chart looked like in the pre-market. So here I was thinking, okay, this is a pre-market high, marked it here, and the pre-market low, so it's kind of in this gray range. But I thought, this blue line also fit pretty well, so I was considering perhaps the true range might have actually been in here, because otherwise it dwelled for a little while up here, but then this looked like where most of the moves were happening. So prices were already going up on this green channel, and on the open, it looks like it's selling off. So I was watching this support line pretty carefully. It starts moving down. I saw this potentially as one leg down. You technically have a first entry long here. Technically, you have a second entry long here by the count, but this isn't a very good signal bar to go long on for second entry. So it's better just to wait and watch. Goes back, pops. You do have a new low here. It's a first entry short, second entry short, similar to the previous. This is just a doji candle. It's above the EMA. It's a little unclear right now if I'm actually truly in a range, so it definitely is a no trade setup for me. Flashes down, you have a fail breakout, and I do see this as a new high. It's a first entry long, pull back. This is a second entry long. This isn't a very good signal bar, but once this trigger bar confirms the second entry long, I thought this might have potentially been a possible trade because you have one leg down, pull back a second leg down. Now, you do keep in mind that it looks like it is respecting this pre-market support here. There was a little break here. You could technically say this is a break here too, but it went right back in. And here, what I liked about this setup is even though the measured move isn't quite made, it is two clear legs down. It went down, it made a matching bottom, and it went back up and closed at the highs. Not only did it close at the highs, during the life of this candle, it did spike up once. So I was thinking maybe there was a trade here. It's an engulfing candle. I think what have pushed me into taking this trade for sure was if this candle had closed bullish. It doesn't have to be this it doesn't have to be like fully bullish up here. The better would have been, yeah, if it closed at the highs, but just not red because it looked like it closed down here. This had to fight its way all the way back up. Now, I was thinking there might have possibly been some kind of trading range here. I was playing with the idea maybe it's actually lower here, but doesn't matter whether it's there, down here, or up here. The matter is that if it's pushing back up, you have plenty of room to get out. So I ended up skipping the trade. It looked like it would have worked. You do have a higher low here, and it's the first break of potentially this green channel, but I wanted a more decisive break, and I'm not 100% sure this is a higher low yet because you don't know what this next candle is going to do. Then here, for sure, you have a higher low, but then this next candle closing here and closing as a doji didn't really give me much confidence. It's a new low here. It's a first entry short, second entry short right here. Let's come move a bit. So to confirm second entry shorts, potentially the top of the range, it's a good signal bar, even though it doesn't really have a body. It's a break of this green up channel right here, and it pushed right back up. So technically it made a new high. This isn't really a triple test because it made one attempt up, pull back, second attempt up. There was really no attempt to push up here, so I didn't really count this as a triple test. So this is more of a double test. But the thing I didn't like is, even though it's a second entry short, I didn't like when it was confirmed, this candle looked very, very neutral. It is red, but it is neutral. And I really wanted this to be closed more toward the bottom. I wasn't really concerned about the EMA acting as a resistance or a support at this point, but I didn't like how this didn't quite have enough momentum or oomph to push it back down. But then once it opened here and it started flashing around and it finally did push down, I thought the trade was already made or was already made, so I had to leave it alone. Then prices didn't continue moving. It looks like it's obeying this trading range right now. It flashes down, and this is right here where the economic data came out, the ISM Services PMI. So I didn't want to risk, being stuck or getting whipsawed because I don't know how. Definitely, it's not going to be as big a reaction as an FOMC meeting, but I check on forexfactory.com and it shows it as a potentially high impact news. So I left it alone. First entry long, pull back. You have a second entry long. Technically, you have failed second entry long. So it's a new high, first entry long, second entry long, failure. You also have a new low, first entry short, second entry short. This is also potentially a breakout pullback. So it has a failed breakout here, but this looks like it had been a failed breakout, went back in and went back down. So actually, this is one more thing I'm going to add. It's a failed second entry long. So there's three key entry points. It's debatable whether you could argue it's a failed breakout pullback or not, but what's not debatable is new high, first entry long, second entry long failure, new low, first entry short, second entry short, strong push down. And I thought this is like a pretty decent setup. I needed the signal bar for me to actually initiate the trade to be also not neutral, and it is a little bit far from the EMA, but this might have been good enough for other traders. If this closed closer to down here, I think I would have gotten my order ready and I would have been able to ride this down. Unfortunately, since it closed somewhat neutral, I left it alone. It opened up here and I thought, okay, I probably made the right choice because this could have been a failed breakout pullback. Excuse me, failed breakout back into this range because I was wondering if maybe if the range was slightly lower, or could prices be playing the larger pre-market trading range? So this is a failed breakout potentially of this larger pre-market trading range. But once it flashed down, it's confirmed breakout pullback. And by that, I felt the trade has already been made. It's too late. So this is either a possible trade, but in my book, I consider it an almost setup. Price then continue moving down. You do have two big legs in the visual. It's a first entry long, pullback second entry long, potentially a failure that's about to occur. So if you're looking at a bigger time frame or bigger tick scale, but in first entry long, second entry long, potentially a failure, but I also saw this potentially as a moving down on this yellow downtrend. So there's no setup that I really like. I just saw it visually, but it's a little more after the fact. Definitely wasn't ready to take a trade off of this. I do see this as a new high. It's a first entry long, pullback, second entry long. Now this one I think was a possible trade, and after it happened, I felt like maybe I should have taken it, but I'm okay that I didn't. It is a little bit aggressive. So it's a strong push above the previous. So it's a first entry long, second entry long. This is a good signal bar to go long, but I wouldn't go long because it is starting to counter trend trade, and you're below the EMA. EMA is clearly showing a bias is moving down. So I definitely wouldn't have thought going long. But when this occurred, pushed up, came back down, I thought maybe there's a trade to go short because first entry long, second entry long. The thing that gave me pause was it is pretty close to the localized low already. So it would have definitely been an aggressive trade and it engulfed this previous strong signal bar. So it looked like bulls made an attempt, sellers came in, smashed it all the way down, had the low had more room for clean escape, then I think I would have taken this trade. But since it's so close to the localized low, I was a little hesitant. And I was thinking if I wanted to take a trade, would I set it back up here? Or would I just kind of wait for a kind of like a lower high setup? Fortunately, you know, to take this trade, you would have to pretty much take it at the lows and trust that it's going to break below this. Maybe there's enough momentum. I wasn't sure, so I had to leave it alone. Pushes back. You could say this is the lower high right here, but it's too far from the setup now. Presses in, continue moving down. Here I get a confirmation of this channel now because I thought, okay, this is pretty good. It's probably going to fail breakout, might make an attempt up, get rejected by the EMA or potentially the top of this yellow down channel and come back down. So I was watching this pretty carefully. Definitely not thinking going short yet, and definitely not thinking of going long. Prices then continue moving. So it's now kind of dwelling at the low side of this down channel. It's the first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short here, but it's just by one tick. And this signal bar in real time, you're not even thinking going short yet because it looks like it's starting to recover. It's moving sideways. So with that in mind, It's more telling me, just stay put, don't get too eager, because you don't really know what the character of the market's going to be now. So it does kind of flash up. And here I am wondering, okay, is it going to bounce off the EMA, give me an opportunity to go short? But I didn't like this consolidation because it looks like a bottoming pattern, or at least a correction. But of course, I'm also not thinking of going long yet because the overall bias looks like it's still pushing down. So it does flash up, comes back down, and it starts moving up. So I'm thinking it's moving up in this green channel. So I'm just watching and waiting. Technically, you have a new high here. It's a first entry long. You do have a second entry long here, but this isn't a very good signal bar. Things are just too congested. Too many candles that are small, tight trading side by side. Doesn't give me much confidence. Even though there's like about a 2-point range, to try to scalp even 1 point, you're asking for at least half the move of the range. It just felt a little bit dicey. Prices then continue moving, and now it starts breaking back down below the EMA, falls into this channel, consolidates again. I don't like any real second entry setups in here. It flashes up, kind of chops around. Technically, you have a new low. You have a first entry short. You do have a second entry short here, confirmed, but it does. I just didn't really like this setup. It didn't really have anything too clean for me. All it is telling me is like a second entry short, just barely. It's an inside bar to the previous, which I'm not too keen on. And the EMA, whether it's in play or not, I couldn't really use it as a potential resistance to believe that prices are coming back down. Plus, it's near the localized low already, so I don't want to sell at the lows. But I also wasn't ready to buy at the lows, expecting a move up yet, because the market hasn't told me it's going to do that yet. So it kind of flashes around. You had to sit through this chop. Yes, you could have probably maybe got a 1-point scalp, but it just felt, it's not worth it, in my opinion. The prices then continue moving up. I originally had this yellow channel a little bit lower, something like this. And I treated this as an overshoot, but it started to dwell outside and I wasn't too keen on that. So I actually dragged it up a little bit. And it looked like it was creating a 2-tier channel. It's obeying the bottom part. Now it's kind of obeying the top part. It flashes through and I keep chopping. Nothing that I really particularly liked or felt safe with. Prices then continue moving. It is a new low here. It's a first entry short. Here creates a second entry short, but this happened, and I don't like the second entry short. Here's the reason why. The market bias was neutral, then it sold off. Made one attempt up, came back down. Now it's clearly pushing back up. So I would be shorting on this new low, first entry short, second entry short. This is a terrible signal bar, confirmed second entry short, but it's pushing back up. So definitely you're not thinking going short. This hasn't technically failed yet, but you could anticipate a failure. The thing I didn't like is it's a good signal bar for potential failure, but it's already pushing toward the highs. So this is up here where it hasn't, it has been up here before, but in the localized pattern, it hasn't really been up here before. So to go long as a failed secondary short, depending on what happens in the next candle, it felt risky. If the EMA was tracking upwards, because the EMA is a little bit delayed, it's about, this it's like the 21 EMA. It's 21 of these candles have to make the next candle. So it is a little bit behind. So I didn't like that. So I did mark it as a, potential setup, but I don't think it's a good potential trade. And if you did enter, you'd have to sit through it until finally this thing spiked up. But you have to sit through these two dojis that would have made me pretty nervous. It kind of hits the top, comes back down, makes one attempt. So it hits the top, and now I'm thinking it's going to come back down to test the bottom because this is clearly a pretty well-established channel, this yellow up channel. So it made one attempt up. I'm thinking it's going to make another leg down and potentially bounce off of here, but it doesn't. It keeps pushing up higher. It makes this measured move, one leg up, consolidates, and it makes a second leg up. And I was thinking at one time, maybe it's a little bit higher like this, at which point I'd have to drag this guy over to here and this one slightly higher, which would mean it has made the measured move. It's a breakout here, so it could have been a failed breakout. I'm just watching now. It's a first entry short, second entry short, technically is made right there. But right here, it's such a strong bullish bias to go short. It's counter trend. I just didn't like that. I would need a more bulletproof setup to feel confident. Plus, this is just congested. Look at this doji, hammer, doji. It just doesn't look good. Prices then continue chopping, starts moving down. And so it makes one attempt up, second attempt up. It didn't quite reach the other side. It keeps tracking upwards. I did see this as a new low. It's a first entry short, excuse me, right here. Second entry short. This second entry short, I thought, okay, well, it formed above the EMA technically. It's first entry short, second entry short. The EMA is possibly holding. So seeing this in real time, it did engulf this candle here. Overall bias is bullish, but there was an overshoot, and there was an attempted overshoot here. I was thinking maybe there's some kind of resistance here. Maybe prices are coming down, but there's too many conflicting ideas. So I just had to leave it alone. I said I pretty much need a higher low confirmation that next, next few bars have to break below this, make one attempt up, be rejected by the EMA, then I feel confident pushing down. But then I'd also, to add on top of the requirements, I would need enough room to scalp out before I hit this thing. So that was kind of asking for a lot. So I thought this isn't really a trade to take, just skip it. And lo and behold, breaks through the other side, comes back, hops around. These are pretty big candles now. Well, relatively speaking. It looks like it's respecting some kind of resistance here. And at one time I was thinking this is a resistance here. Maybe there's some kind of support here, and this could be a large trading range. But inside this trading range, there's some kind of resistance being respected here. But nothing I particularly like. Things are just a little whipsaw, pushes up and pushes out. So now it's breaking out and continuing back upwards. So the price is in, continue moving. It falls into this green channel. It makes one attempt up, second attempt up, but this isn't a very good signal bar. You could argue that you might want to take it on this candle. However, I felt like I'm already pushing toward the localized high, so I didn't want to take that. Prices then came back down. It looks like it's in this trading range. So this is actually where I tried to take my one and only trade for the day. So keep in mind, this is already 1 hour left in the day. And I had to sit through all of this feeling FOMO, especially when you see this. I kept looking back thinking, was there a trade here that I could have taken? Was there a trade here that I potentially missed out on that I could have jumped on? And over here, certainly you see this big move up and you do the same thing. You think, was there a setup here that I missed? And there probably was, but for my experience level, I didn't catch it. So this is the way I drew the chart, and this is what I saw. But definitely here, I saw this as a new high. I saw this as a first entry long pullback. It creates a second entry long here. So it's first entry long, second entry long. It's breaking out of this trading range now. This uptrend has made its new high, so the uptrend has played out. It tried a second time here, but it created a lower high, but it was above the EMA. And finally, when it made the second attempt up on the second entry long, it failed. I thought this is actually a rather decent trade. So yes, it is counter trend trade what's happening, but this big push up also has made its own high because you have this break of this yellow channel. It made one attempt up on a big visual. So it did test the high. So this uptrend could have been played out. So there could have been not necessarily a reversal, but a correction happening. And this strong push below the EMA and these attempts up to break above it failed. So when this closed, I said, this is actually might be a decent setup. It's a failed breakout, potentially, because you could say this is a trading range, could be a failed breakout. It could move back into this blue range, but I didn't quite see it that way because these two candles previously were having a lot of trouble. And so I saw this as a potential failed breakout pullback. And since it touched the EMA, came back and closed so strongly, I said, this is a trade that's actually pretty decent. So when next time it opened, I put my entry. This is a pretty big candle. So I said, this candle is 10 ticks. This is the 10 tick candle, actually 3-point candle. This is a 3-point candle, which is higher than the risk I wanted. I said, I want at least only like 10 ticks, so about 2.5 points. So I put my entry up here, hoping that the next time this opened, when this candle opens, would be a little bit higher than the low. And it maybe flash up a little bit for bulls trying to push it back up, pick me up, and then go down. It didn't. It opened here and continued down. So at that point, my entry was way up here, about roughly here. When it moved and made my scalp, I said, okay, definitely the trade's been made. Don't chase this. And it looked like it would have worked out pretty well. And if you had a runner, it would have worked out just as well as again. So unfortunately, this is the one trade that I wanted to take, waited the whole day for, and missed it. And so it ended up being a no trade day. Prices then continued down. There's an overshoot here, goes down, makes a new low, first entry short, second entry short. This is a second entry short, decent signal bar, and it is getting a little bit late in the day. You could consider as one push down. This could be a second attempt down, but for whatever reason, I just didn't feel it. I saw it, but I just thought, I'm I wanted to control my emotions because I knew I just lost on this opportunity. I didn't want to just suddenly chase it because I just didn't feel quite right. And I was lucky because this is going with trend. You could tell the market's already pushing back down. Although it's a second entry short potential, it is kind of pushing up now. You're seeing the previous momentum is coming up. The previous momentum here is coming down. So even though if you took this trade, you would have gotten filled and then you not necessarily have gotten stopped out yet, but then this candle would have stopped you out. But just it wasn't quite the same setup. So I definitely just kind of left it alone. And prices continue moving up. Now it gets kind of late in the day. It's a first entry long. You technically have a second entry long here, but this is already with only 10 minutes left in the day. And at that point, I was just kind of resigned myself to know that there's going to be a no trade day. And kind of prices then chopped around and it just goes into the close. So kind of how I saw the charts today. Lately, I've noticed that the ES has been kind of kind of in a drought, I would say, other than the FOMC meeting that created some volatility. Trading has for the ES has been a little bit, in my opinion, more sparse. There weren't as many great trading days necessarily. The volume today was so, wasn't that high. So I've started to kind of poke around and do the same strategy on the NQ. So I've been trading on the simulator, but I think I'll probably maybe do some review videos of those just so for my own journaling as well. So I can just keep building my knowledge base. But I'm hoping that the ES, because it's debatable whether the ES or the NQ are follow price action more better, but I have noticed that the ES has gotten a little, I wouldn't say tough, but it's just not as fluid and not as nice and giving opportunities as it has been in the last year or so. So hopefully that was helpful.